enjoy the proceedings this morning. I'd also like to thank Regional Development Australia, Townsville and North Queensland. They have contributed to this event and in particular the webinar component, so thank you for that. Given the different format that we have this morning with the webinar, we will not be accepting any public questions just because it's a little bit hard to do with people joining us online. But all of the presenters have agreed to pop their contact details up on their slide afterwards and hang around for you to go and have a chat to. Alternatively, you can come and talk to myself or Mick. Where's your hand, Mick? Where's Mick sitting? There he is. You can come and talk to us. We work in the Defence Industry Hub, so come and have a chat to us and we can point you in the right direction if you have any questions about the presentations today. A little bit of housekeeping. If you need to go to the toilet this morning, if you just go out the door that you came in and hang a left and walk right to the end, you'll see the toilets, male and female. If there is a fire alarm today, you'll see the little green exit signs on both of these doors and a couple behind me as well. I feel like an air hostess. So please make sure you go out those doors and meet on the grass or out in the car park if you are exiting this way. Also, could you please turn your mobile phones to silent, please, as to not disrupt the presentations this morning if you have not done so already. Without further ado, I would like to introduce Mr. Scott Stewart to present an official welcome for this morning.
Thank you, Amy, and it's great to be back with each and every one of you again today. It has been a while, Amy. And of course, you've given us the kiss of death when you said when everything's going to work, all the technology is going to be in place, we won't have any problems. And of course, whenever we say that, we know that technology will always let us down in some way, shape or form. But good morning, everyone. And thank you for coming along this morning to the Defence Industry Projects update. Whether you're here at the Ville enjoying breakfast with each other or whether you're online, it's great to have you here along today. And of course, I'd like to pay my respects to the traditional owners of the land in which we stand here at the Ville, the Walkarookabar and Bindal people, and pay my respects to elders past, present, and of course, those emerging. I'd also like to acknowledge my parliamentary colleague, the member for Thuringowa, Aaron Harper, and also Councillor Mollicino for being with us here today as well. And of course, thanks must also go to Paul Holden and his team from the Department of State Development, Tourism and Innovation for organising this event. And it has been some time, but it's great to be back, Paul, isn't it? And of course, particular thanks must go to Amy Lever from the Defence Industry Hub for pulling together a great lineup of speakers today. And of course, being the best MC ever. Looking at your face is certainly much better than looking at my face, I'll tell you right now. But I'm sure you'll all agree that cruel and unusual punishment doesn't come close to describing the year that we've had so far. What is not unusual, of course, is how North Queensland has responded to that. That's because adversity is nothing new for regional communities like ours, whether it's times of crisis where we have cyclones, floods, droughts, downturn in our economic progress. We know that we band together, and I think that's what makes us so strong. Today, many of us feel bruised and battered, whether it be from the ongoing impacts of the pandemic or all those other events that we've had. Yet despite all this calamity, our house still stands strong. In fact, I go so far as to say that our house stands even stronger now than what it was before. It's this doggedness to succeed that defines us as North Queenslanders. One of the world's leading commentators on resilience said, "Enthusiasm is common, but endurance is rare." And I think that that describes us and what makes us a little bit different here in North Queensland. Ambition and optimism are great qualities to have, but here in North Queensland, we know real substance comes from failure, from getting up time and time again when we're knocked down, and boy, haven't we had some knockdowns. Yes, the world is in crisis, but because of this fighting spirit that we have here, our house continues to stand strong. Supported by $8 billion worth of Queensland Government Economic Recovery Plan and the $200 million Building Acceleration Fund, our regional prosperity is set to continue. Today, we are a regional community delivering the Asia Pacific's most innovative health and knowledge advancements. Today, we are a regional community diversifying and expanding Northern Australia's critical supply chains in resourcing, agriculture, health, and more. We're also a regional community that's making it for Queensland, creating manufacturing ecosystems that is truly setting a high bar. And we are a regional community that isn't taking our garrison roots for granted, working resolutely to build a world-class defence hub for Northern Australia to respond to the needs of a new world. Some of that work is being led by Townsville Defence Industry Hub, a 2017 election commitment and priority action by the Queensland Defence Industry's 10-year roadmap and action plan. Engaging with over 300 individual businesses since 2019, the Hub is working hard to assist local businesses to be defence ready for national and global supply chain opportunities. The Hub is also forming strong alliances with major contractors to ensure these SMEs are afforded opportunities to get involved in the defence sector. As an example, the Australian-Singapore Military Training Initiative, the Hub has delivered regional capability development in supporting over 50 SMEs to submit market-sounding responsibilities for the early works packages for Greenvale. The Hub has also assisted global welding suppliers to supply welding machines to Rheinmetall for the Melvico project. For the Land 4502 Chinook helicopter facilities upgrade, the Hub has assisted Lendlease to engage 22 North Queensland SMEs, including Peak ARE and EMA Electrics, who commence on their maiden defence contracts. And I think that's great news for us here in the North. And that only scratches the surface. To give you further insight, it's time to hand over to Amy, our MC for today. As part of the Defence Industry Hub, Amy, I'll invite you back up. Amy will provide an overview to the defence projects that will continue to shape the future prosperity of our region, which will be covered during today's event. To finish, I wish to acknowledge the remarkable efforts of our community to keep each other safe, strong and resilient. Today, as always, I'm proud to call myself a North Queenslander. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Scott. So today you're going to hear from 4 presenters about some very exciting topics. We're going to hear from FKG and AECOM about the $120 million midterm refresh project, a huge opportunity for hopefully many local businesses. So make sure you listen carefully and contact those people that might help you to get an opportunity within that project. We're also going to hear from the Australian Cyber Security Centre. As you know, cybersecurity is huge at the moment. Our businesses are more vulnerable now than they have ever been, so it's very important to understand how we can protect our business, particularly when working on defence projects. We're also going to hear from Defence about the HMAS Cairns project, so very exciting also, and I'm sure we've got a lot of people dialed in from Cairns on our webinar this morning to hear about those opportunities. And we're also going to hear from Cushman and Wakefield about the Estate Works program within Defence. Another bunch of opportunities for local businesses, so really important information for you to hear this morning also. Next up, I would like to introduce David Donoghue, Deputy Chair from Regional Development Australia, Townsville and North West Queensland. David's going to tell you a little bit about RDA. Over to you, David.
Good morning all. Good morning all. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you to the department. Technology, Amy. Thank you to the department for inviting us and allowing us to participate today. We're proud to bring you the live stream component of this to allow people from across the world, in fact, to join us online. I'm Dave Donoghue, as said, the Deputy Chair for Regional Development, and we're an interesting organisation that not a lot of people actually know about. So, with your indulgence, cool. For those of you that don't know about RDA, and we are a fairly quiet organisation, we're an Australian government-funded program. There are 52 of us across across Australia, and our region is one of the monsters. We actually run from Burdekin up to Hinchinbrook, west to the Gulf, up into the Northern Territory border, south to Boulia, including 15 local government areas. We have a committee made up of 8 people, all volunteers, ranging from mayors, deputy mayors, and I recognise Mary Brown from Hinchinbrook, who's one of our members and our treasurer. And we are all appointed by the Deputy Prime Minister to serve voluntarily to support. Our role's quite a simple one. and it's to facilitate and advocate for economic development. We're a trusted advisor and we sit between local, state and federal government and the regional community to ensure that projects get the airing that they need, to make sure that the people are aware what's coming down the pipeline from government, and also to help rub the rough edges off as it goes through. So if you have any questions about issues that are surrounding you, or you want some support, or you want some advocacy, we're the people to come and see. I'm not going to worry about that anymore. Look, we're very proud to support the live stream today through our Building Jobs in Northern Queensland project. It's a project under what was the Regional Employment Trials Program, which RDA administers. And through that project, we've developed a civil and commercial construction database, which gives a project pipeline of everything that we know that's happening in the region, both current, future, proposed, and potential. And that means that people can have more awareness of what's coming along and what they can be working towards. So hopefully there's something in there that's of interest to you all. And if you want to just Google RDA TNWQ, you'll find us. We also run a series of webinars and there's material on there for you all. So I apologise for the first breakdown in technology, but I recognise I'm certainly not the person that you wanted to hear from. So I'd like to hand over. Thank you. Enjoy your breakfast and welcome to those online. Thank you.
Thank you very much, David. I don't think I'll just check with the IT man at the back if we can skip next time we go through the slides, if he can do it manually for us. Thank you. Thank you very much, David. So our next speaker, we have Mr. Ben Prest from FKG. Ben's going to talk to you about the FKG AECOM joint venture project, which is the $120 million midterm refresh project. I'm sure you're very eager to hear about this one, so no pressure, Ben, but over to you.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks all for coming. It's like everyone else said, it's great to be back in front of a crowd and mingle with some people. It's very nice. As Amy introduced, I'm Ben Prest. I'm the North Queensland Operations Manager for FKG, and I also represent the joint venture between FKG and AECOM as part of the midterm refresh. Excuse me. So the North Queensland midterm refresh is approximately $120 million project with covering bases at RAF Base Townsville, Townsville Field Training Area and HMAS Cairns. The proposed scope of the midterm refresh is basically bringing the base facilities up to scratch to cover off on items that may not make what Defence do. They usually have a 25-year cycle where they do full base redevelopment. So a midterm refresh is basically a 10-year cut in the middle to pick up items that won't make the next full base redevelopment. So what we're doing as part of the midterm refresh is there's been a whole heap of items selected by Defence that we're improving for these three bases. The delivery phase of the project will roughly run for about 2.5 years, and the current project status is the design is ongoing and all works are still subject to parliamentary approval. As I mentioned, this is a joint venture between FKG and AECOM. FKG and AECOM both have offices spread up and down the North Queensland coast, and there's a few slides that will cover off on that. I've got my team from FKG and AECOM here that we're more than happy to field questions from anyone after the event. So these two tables here. This project has been delivered, like most of the other larger projects that have been delivered in North Queensland, as a Defence managing contract. So it's a two-stage MC. We're currently engaged to do the planning phase, which we've brought it from 5%, 30%, 50%, currently going into the 90% design. And the delivery, like I said, the delivery phase is subject to parliamentary approval. So the way it works is there's a trust account set up, which is managed by Defence. Defence have a PMCA, which is JLL, who's also in the room today. Thanks, Simone and James. And every dollar that we spend on the site or that we recommend to spend on the site has to go through the PMCA's approval and then over to Defence. Yeah, so a bit on FKG. So we're a privately owned company with head office in Toowoomba. We've got approximately 780 team members based across Queensland and the NT. And fortunately for us, we've got offices in Cairns, Townsville, Mackay and Rocky, which cover off on, obviously Cairns and Townsville cover off on the two areas for the MTR. Very similar with AECOM, very passionate about being regionally located. Their head office in Brisbane, but then they've got approximately 200 people spread across the northern part of Queensland as well. So AECOM have been a great joint venture partner for us on this project. Righto, on to the interesting stuff that everyone's here to hear about. So the scope at RAF Townsville. The scope at RAF Townsville is the largest portion of the MTR, with approximately $75 million of the scope based here. So there's a new transit accommodation building that you can see a photo of at the bottom of the slide. So it's a 3-storey, 67-room accommodation building for transit staff coming through. So when there's the big exercises like Talisman Sabre, that this facility will house the pilots that come up and play in those games. There's also an upgrade to the base fire and potable water ring mains, which are with approximately 12 kilometres of pipe going into the ground. So you can imagine the infrastructure required and the disruptions required to put 12 kilometres of new pipe in the ground. It's going to take a lot of staging effort and a lot of time to get that done. So basically, much to Mick's dislike, we're going to cut up nearly every one of his roads on base to put that in. So also at RAF Base Townsville, 65 Squadron are getting a refurb. So their buildings 207, 208, 193 and 226 are getting a nice facelift. So that'll be good for them to bring their 1960s facilities up to speed. We've got an upgrade of the fire suppression system in building 192. And then we've got a base engineering program, so that it called BEEP. A couple of years ago, Defence did a review of all their estates across Australia, and out of these items was the BEEP program. So this could range from upgrading comms rooms to fixing lights to upgrading substations and everything in between. So that's a large portion of scope at RAF Townsville as well. So most of the people that are in Townsville know where RAF Townsville is. So there's a short overview of RAF Townsville. So the trade packages that will be likely to be tendered at RAF Townsville, and I should have mentioned it earlier, we'll be running the project in 3 individual projects. So we'll have a site team and a procurement strategy for RAF Townsville. We'll do the same for Townsville Field Training Area, and we'll do the same for HMAS Cairns. So we're not going to be joining all this together and going to the largest contractors. We're splitting it up to allow the local subbies and the local people to be able to tender on these works, hence the way that the presentation is today. So at RAF Townsville, the largest package will be the civil works, will be that 12 kilometres of fire and water main that I spoke about. There'll also be some piling works under the LIA, your general structural and building trades for the LIA, so your concrete formwork, Rio, blockwork, glazing, electrical, mechanical, etc. And then we'll have a external electrical comms package as well. So a lot of the BEEP works, comms and electrical related. So a lot of the comms rooms across the base, I think there's about 52, will be touched in one way or the other. There's a couple of K of HV cable that needs to go into the ground. So we'll split those packages up so we can get an external and a building electrical trade as well. Thanks. All right, Townsville Field Training Area. So Townsville Field Training Area, for those who don't know where it is, and impossible to put a map up because it's literally too large. So it used to be called High Range back in the day. It spreads from Harvey's Range, if those you know where the Heritage Tea Rooms are, at Harvey's Range. It basically starts there and heads all the way to Charters Towers. So our scope is a new Fanning sector entry point. So the Fanning sector entry point is approximately 60 k's from Charters Towers or 100 kilometres from Laverack Barracks. It's on the Dotswood Road, so you turn off at Mingala. There's a dirt road that goes between Mingala and Harvey's Range. So it's about 10 kilometres in from the Mingala point, and we're developing a new entry point for defence. So this new entry point will comprise of civil works to construct the new area. So we'll have to clear the space, build up the pavement. We'll have a vehicle washdown / de-seeding point. So Defence are very particular about their environmental impact. So any vehicles that go onto the range or off the range have to be de-seeded, so they're nice and clean and tidy, so they're not spreading their any environmental issues around. We'll have a potable water tank and generators. We're electrical generators as well, and then construction of the new facilities. So that'll be a nice, cool little satellite hub on its own, sitting out there, which will be a great sort of turnkey for a civil package or a building contractor as well. The other parts of the TFTA are the beep works that I mentioned earlier at RAF Base Townsville. So Townsville Field Training Area is spread, like I said, from Harvey's Range to Charters Towers, and they've got a lot of different facilities out there, different camps, 350-man camp, 250-man camp, range control, all their training areas. So what we're going to do with these beep works is split the items into the camps. So there might be 10 or 12 items that need to be done at 250-man camp, 15 or 20 items at 350-man camp, et cetera, et cetera. So this is where we'd really like to engage with the local smaller builders and give them their, as you were saying, give them their maiden defence contract, and allow a smaller builder to be able to grab one of these campsites, and they might do anything from sewerage, electrical, comms, a little bit of roofing work, a little bit of building work. So it fits in very well. It's definitely not a traditional build by any means, but it has the scope to allow that to happen. So we'll split all that up, which will be good. And then last but not least, the scope at HMAS Cairns. So as you can see on the slide, that HMAS Cairns is a very small site tucked into the river there in Cairns. And the major package up here is, again, the upgrade of the fire and water main in Cairns. So that's again going to be cutting up a lot of their pavements there to put the new fire and water ring main in. We've also got Defence own a accommodation block called Los Palmas in the centre of Cairns. So we've got a mechanical services upgrade there, and then we've got some minor beep works as well, stormwater pit upgrades, electrical and comms upgrades, et cetera, et cetera. So the package is to be tendered: mechanical, civil, electrical and comms up there. Trade packages, so I've mentioned this throughout the slide, but the packaging plan key principles are obviously to maximise local contractor involvement, maximise Indigenous engagement, focus on value for money, which is a big item, the programming of works, the minimised coordination issues for the defence users on base, and focus on delivery method of package. So when we talk about delivery methods of package, is exactly what I was mentioning earlier, just breaking those packages down to be able to give different contractors a good shot at getting into this type of work. Okay, so the procurement process, once the project goes through parliamentary approval, and I must put the caveat on all dates that are on this slide are subject to parliamentary approval. Expressions of interest will be called through Amy and the Defence Hub, on the local newspapers, LinkedIn, Facebook, all that sort of technology stuff. Industry briefings similar to this one will be held project specific for this project in early 21, and then EIIs will be called after the industry briefing. A couple of items to note is the Indigenous procurement policy will apply, and the code for tendering and performance of building work will apply as well. And then you can see the legislative requirements there on the slide as well. So tendering for the project. So tender list will be formed from vetted subcontractors and suppliers from the EOI. So as you can imagine, we'll put out an EOI and we'll hopefully get hundreds and hundreds of responses. We'll break that, we will assess that and break that down into sort of 4 or 5 companies that we feel suitable for the particular packages that we're tendering, and then we'll send out tender packages progressively. Tenders will be issued on ACONEX. Tender submission forms and information need to be completed thoroughly. So as part of our industry briefings, and we'll have some engagement sessions, we'll run you through how to, the must-haves that you need to fill out as part of those tender forms. Tenders need to then be submitted on ACONEX through to us. This gives the Commonwealth their visual on all these tenders. And then a tender is assessed on price and non-price criteria. So price will not be the be all and end all. The non-price criteria will obviously be the stuff that I went through a couple of slides ago: local engagement, Indigenous engagement, training, etc., etc. And then recommendations will be issued to Defence for approval, and then hopefully we'll hit the ground running with everyone local. So the next steps. So we're currently finalising the 90% detailed design, and then we'll go through to PwC notification, hearing and expediency with the delivery phase agreement and approval, hopefully by end of February next year, which will then allow us to commence works possibly mid next year. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ben. That was a very interesting presentation. I'm sure you will all agree. A lot of potential opportunity there for local businesses. Ben made mention that they'll be calling for expressions of interest potentially around the late in Q1 next year. It's really important to remember as a business to start preparing for those opportunities now. So don't wait until you see the expression of interest in the paper or through our Defence Industry Hub. Start getting your business ready for those opportunities. Mick and myself in the Industry Hub, we can help you do that. So please come and have a chat with us, and we can get you ready so that you can put your best foot forward and hopefully get shortlisted amongst those hundreds and hundreds of tenders that you might get, Ben. And that's our job, to try and help you get there. So please come and have a chat with us, and we can help you along your journey. Next slide, please. Before we head over to our next presenter, who will be via Zoom, I just wanted to quickly draw your attention to the armoured fighting vehicles at Laverack Barracks in Townsville, the new generation. You may have seen this email circulating around through our Industry Hub over the last couple of months. Essentially, we are just urging businesses to get out there and contact these 4 shortlisted managing contractors to talk about your capability to look for opportunities to work within this project. There are proposed works, and they include a 3-storey simulation centre and lecture theatre, shelter for housing containerised tactical training systems, a high voltage substation and modifications to existing services infrastructure, electrical, water, gas, sewerage and ICT. So that is a lot of opportunity. So if you have not done so already, these four shortlisted MCs have urged us to let businesses know that they want to hear from you and about your business capability. So please do make contact with them if you have not done so already. All right, next up is our first Zoom speaker. So fingers crossed everything goes to plan. I'd like to introduce Ewan Ward from the Australian Cyber Security Centre. He will be presenting via Zoom, and he'll speak to you on the importance of cybersecurity for your business, and particularly when working on defence contracts. Ewan is the Director of Brisbane Joint Cyber Security Centre. Australian Cyber Security Centre is responsible for the partnerships and collaboration with government, industry, academia and the not-for-profit sector in Queensland. Good luck. I'd like to hand it over to Ewan.
Very much, everyone, and hopefully you can hear me. I've got a few slides to run through today with you to kind of set the scene from a cybersecurity threat perspective, and also what that means for the defence industry in particular, and then round it out with some things that you should think about putting in place if you haven't already. I'll move through fairly quickly. There will be some contact details at the end of the presentation, so please feel free to reach out to us afterwards. Unfortunately, I couldn't be up there today. I would love to have visited Townsville again, but couldn't manage that for travel reasons with COVID restrictions from our side, even though it's within Queensland. but I would love to have been there in person, but please do reach out after the event if you wish. So I'm from the Australian Cybersecurity Centre. We are part of the Australian Signals Directorate. We look after the cybersecurity mission. And just to dazzle you with some Australian government acronyms and titles, you can see there we have a range of partners from a cybercrime perspective, the Australian Federal Police and the Australian Criminal Intelligence Commission. From a cyber espionage perspective, the Australian Security Intelligence Organisation, and from a national security and defence perspective, the Department of Defence. We also have the Department of Home Affairs, who are responsible for cybersecurity policy, and they produced the recent cybersecurity strategy for Australia, which some of you may have had a look at. In terms of the environment and the threats, there's a range of actors that you need to be aware of. These are the main ones we talk about. We've got state-sponsored actors. These tend to be the most sophisticated of the actor subset. They can be either states themselves or actors that are sponsored by states. So it can be criminal networks, for example. Their interests are a very wide range and a wider range of areas of interest than previously. It's not just about foreign policy, defence and security information. It's also that broader economic piece. And if you think about any way that a country would seek strategic advantage across a whole range of areas nationally, cybersecurity can be used as a vector to gain an advantage in that space. Certainly the largest group is the second one for us in terms of impact on Australia across the board, and that is the cybercrime piece. And one of the reasons for that is it's quite simple, there's money to be made, and a lot of money to be made through cybercrime. Also, the tools and techniques that they use are increasingly readily available, and they are becoming more sophisticated. So the traditional gap, if you like, between the capabilities of the criminal groups and the state-sponsored groups is narrowing. The third is the issue-motivated groups. Traditionally, these are hacktivists such as Anonymous, and they're interested in targeting organisations to draw attention to their cause. And there you're looking at things that would likely disrupt your services. For example, a denial of service attack on your website or a defacement of your website. And then the last group is individuals, which includes two sides. There's the malicious insider. This is driven by personal grievance or perhaps a motivation to, extract some money from an organisation. But then there's also the unintentional. And if you look at some of the reporting that's produced by the Office of the Australian Information Commissioner about data breaches, there's a large number of those breaches that are caused by insiders who aren't doing anything maliciously. They're literally making mistakes. So they're sending emails that they shouldn't send. They're exposing parts of the organisation to the internet when they shouldn't. So in terms of what is targeted, this slide sort of summarises what that looks like. And you can see here that the vast majority of areas are all access to information. Now there is, on the bottom right there, access points of propagation. That's where the actor is trying to access your network for the purpose of moving around inside. Now that could be to access information, or it could be to shut down or otherwise affect the operations of your network. But for the most part, the target set is information, whether it's personal information, commercial information, it could be national security information. In the case of defence industry, there's a lot of sensitive information available or that will be targeted. So it's important to understand why they might be targeting you and what they'll be looking for. In terms of, the high-level key cyber threats, it's important to understand that phishing emails and spear phishing are still the most common method used to gain access to your networks and to access those networks to extract user credentials, move around inside, exfiltrate information, or conduct something like a ransomware attack. And so the phishing emails, for those of you who aren't aware, phishing refers to those general spam emails that go out to absolutely everybody with the hopes of getting a hit, as where spear phishing is a very targeted phishing attack, which is directed at you or your people for the purpose of getting access to your specific organisation. I've mentioned cybercrime as the most pervasive threat. A couple there to highlight: ransomware is causing increasing issues, and issues across the industry and government and not-for-profit sectors. So this is where someone locks down your data and you can't get access to it, and they require a ransom to unlock it. It's affecting very large corporate organisations as well as smaller organisations. And business email compromise is still very prevalent in terms of trying to divert money from you through to the malicious actor. They will compromise either your emails so they can change, for example, invoice details, or they can, if they get access to your networks and you run an accounting software on your system which might manage your accounts, then they can change details in those programs, in those applications. And the last one is simply scanning organisations to look for vulnerabilities and weaknesses across systems and networks. Just a few statistics, just to point out that the threat is very real. So the AECSC in its 2019 report identified that Australians had lost over $634 million in 2019. We don't know the full extent of this. That's an estimate. It wouldn't surprise me or probably anyone else to know that that number is probably lower than what it could or should be. Last financial year, so 2019 to 30 June, the ACSC responded to 2,266 cybersecurity incidents. But if you look at the last number there, 59,806 reports of cybercrime, which is an average of 1 report every 10 minutes in the last financial year. And that's what's reported to us. That's not what goes without being reported to us. In terms of defence industry, it's definitely a target. We see defence industry targeted. Sometimes it's easier to access someone who's working with defence than defence itself. So you can be a vector for access to defence and defence information because you may not be as secure as defence's own networks. And just to highlight this, there's a few examples here of past breaches. These are all in the public domain, so you can have a look at them. You can see there though, again, it's all about the extraction of the information from a defence industry perspective. It's about sensitive designs, whether those are ships or aviation projects. And the Codan breach there, which was the theft of intellectual property for the purpose of developing a particular new capability and having that intellectual property stolen so the products can be replicated by competitors or potential competitors. Would just highlight the Defence Industry Security Program that is run by the Department of Defence. They have a range of requirements and advice that they do provide people. The link is down there at the bottom. But if you do a search on the Defence Industry Security Program, if you're not aware of it, you can find more information about the requirements there. So in terms of, I've given you the bad news story, if you like. What can you do about it? If you are a larger organisation, then we would recommend that you seriously look at implementing the ASD Essential 8. The controls are listed there. You can find more information about the Essential 8 on our website, which I'll put a link up to shortly. The critical thing here is ASD over a long period of time has developed this list of the most effective controls that you can put in place to mitigate against targeted attacks against your organisation. They won't stop everything, and there will still be other things that you need to manage about your networks. But if you put in things like application control, you patch your applications, you patch your operating systems, you disable Microsoft macros that aren't trusted, you do application hardening, we've got advice on our website about that, you restrict administrative privileges, and you have things like multi-factor authentication and you do backups, then you'll be in a very good position to minimise the impact on your organisation. You can certainly put these in place if you are a smaller organisation, but some of them are quite difficult and are designed for sort of industry scale mitigations. But you can certainly put these in place, a number of these in place quite easily as a standard user for a small business. In terms of general mitigation advice, we do recommend very strongly multi-factor authentication. Most people will probably be aware of this. It's common even things like Gmail these days. It's where you have two types of authentication needed. So apart from just a username and password, you need some other kind of fingerprint or token, something else that you need to verify who you are. And we see multi-factor authentication being very effective at stopping access, because if they steal your credentials and they don't have that second factor, then they can't get access. Passphrases are worth considering. Strongly recommend those over just passwords. If you increase the complexity of the password and you don't just add a 1 at the end or an @ symbol in the middle or something, it will make it a lot harder for access to be or for people to crack your passwords essentially. And patching, again, making sure that your applications are patched, your operating system is patched, and that's simply a matter of, even for small business and individuals, turning on your automatic updates in most cases. So a bit more information. If you go to cyber.gov.au, that's our website, there is advice on there are publications, there's news, there's a range of communications, there's information about the threat environment. So I would encourage you to visit cyber.gov.au if you haven't already. There's an example there of, if you are a small business, of some cybersecurity guides and advice that we have provided and developed specifically for small business. And the bookmark there is, again, an example that highlights the importance of spear phishing, and there's some information there about recognizing and trying to minimize the impact of spear phishing. And then this is just an example of some other products that we have available. The things that I've talked about, multi-factor authentication, etc. There is guidance that's available on our website. And I'll leave it there, just leave those up for a second if I may. Contact details for us, and down the bottom, if you are interested in getting in touch with the Joint Cybersecurity Centre here in Brisbane, we have a range of partners around the state, including in Townsville. Please reach out to us, or you can contact us through ASD Assist. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ewan. I don't know about you guys, but those statistics for how much money was lost in Australia last year is mind-blowing. And I think that makes us realise just how serious cyber threats really are for your business. So please do jump on the website and have a look. If you don't feel like you've got many mechanisms in place to look after your business in terms of cyber, Australian Cybersecurity Centre website is a perfect way to start. Or alternatively, as always, come and see Mick or myself. Next up, I would like to introduce Justin Gainey from Cushman and Wakefield. Justin has flown all the way to Townsville just for this morning, so hopefully you all feel very special. Justin will be speaking to you about Defence's Estate Works program and associated opportunities.
Thank you very much for having me. I'd like to start by paying my respects to the traditional custodians of the land upon which we meet, and I acknowledge the contributions First Nations people have made and continue to make to the defence of our country. I am Brisbane-based. I haven't flown too far, and I have had other things to do whilst I've been here. Cushman and Wakefield has a national contract with Defence for program management of estate works. Large portion of that's headquartered in Canberra at a defence base there. And we have 7 distributed regional offices, of which I'm the Queensland manager. As of today, we have 2 new Cushman and Wakefield employees for the first time in Townsville. Som and Renee are here today. So very pleased to have them here and expanding our service to defence in North Queensland. Thank you. So I'll talk a little bit about what, who, how of estate works. A lot of my slides are very cluttered. I won't labour them, but some of the key points I'll hopefully tease out for you. And at the end, I will have some numbers. You will not be able to hold me to them, but I want to give you an idea of the scale of estate works. $120 million projects are not our core business. Thank you. So estate works, firmly focused on sustaining the current estate. Listed here are some of the typical projects we will do. A lot of building refurbishments. So multi-trade, you'll get a whole building and you'll fix the whole building up. Very rarely would we do a new build. We have done the odd one, but they're outside of our core business. We have some projects that break the thresholds there, but we will not start a project at greater than 15 million. That's a bit of a legacy figure that harks back to the previous approval threshold for parliamentary approval. We wanted to avoid that in the past, but yeah, some projects we've grown over that. The average is around $2 million, but if I can impress nothing more about what Estate Works is, it is about sustainment. Thanks. This rather complicated slide shows a funnel view of our business. At the top, we have the inputs, very much an input base. Cushman & Wakefield doesn't drive the requirements. We receive inputs. The largest basis for those inputs is a process called estate appraisal. It's a condition assessment undertaken by the facilities management or estate maintenance folk spotless. That's 80+% of our business. The funnel is quite apt here because it shows a large body of work at the top end. We don't have the money to afford all of those works. So as we move through the funnel, we undertake a review and prioritisation process, and that's led by Cushman & Wakefield in consultation with Defence at various levels. And at the end of halfway through the funnel, I suppose, where the colour changes, Cushman & Wakefield takes half a step back and we hand over projects for delivery. And there's an acronym there called CHOTO, and if you are a first-time defence contractor, that will hurt you. It's simple stuff. Not a lot of stuff is simple in defence. Importantly here, as depicted on the left of the slide, Defence is the manager. They are the decision maker. They hold the budget. All of the contracted support partners are there to support Defence and Defence decision making. Some of the key players, you will learn, if you haven't done work for Defence, you will learn a whole new set of acronyms. The most important one on this slide is DUPO, so the Director of Estate Works Program Office. They are the organisation, a national office organisation in Service Delivery Division, a part of Estate and Infrastructure Group that has the budget for estate works. They have contracts with Cushman & Wakefield and the two project delivery service partners, which I will talk about in 1 second. And Mr. Brodie Wootton is the director. When we were agreeing with Amy to do this presentation, the borders were closed and Brodie couldn't come out of Canberra. Kind of ironic that you're stuck with me. And the borders opened on Thursday to the ACT. The other one there, DEPU, Estate Planning and Upkeep, they are the contract authority for the Estate Maintenance and Operational Service, the EMOS, which is spotless. Kind of doesn't matter to you guys, but NMPB, the third from the bottom there, they're the gatekeepers for lodging of tender documentation to AusTender, and that's a very important thing I'll touch on again. Estate management and planning and the base management or base manager and the base support teams, a couple of individuals are here today, I won't call them out, are the local support and guidance for those contractors undertaking the works. You'll see them at projects, involved on site with your projects at time to time. Thank you. So, yep, Cushman & Wakefield, the National Program Service. From now on, I'm just going to call myself NPS. Okay, acronyms. The Project Delivery Service partners are Agility, which is a JLL joint venture, and AECOM. And as I said, the EMOS provider is spotless, and they will do project work as well as their core estate maintenance business. And we'll do about 20% of our projects nationally. That's a bit the what and the who, and now for the how. This is, I guess, NPS 101. We undertake a program development process on a rolling 3-year basis. So we adjust our plan as we go through time. Things change, emerging pressures, and we adjust our program every year. We're currently reviewing the 21 to 23 program. We facilitate that in NPS in consultation with Defence at multiple levels. So my colleagues in Canberra right now are talking to the Army headquarters and that sort of level. I've already consulted with the base and regional guys to get their priorities forward. At the end, and this back to the funnel, at the end of the Cushman and Wakefield program development function, we are authorised by a high-level committee, once we've done all our consultation, to bundle approved, endorsed works into projects and issue those projects for delivery. And we issue projects on a quarterly basis, except for Christmas. So February, May and August, we will roughly release a third of our budget for that year. Now, the spend for that happens later, so I won't get too wrapped around the axles about that, but roughly a third of our business is released on a quarterly basis. Thanks. This slide, again, busy, basically just describes a standard sort of 3-phase approach to projects. This is just the PDS model, not the EMOS model, but each phase requires a defence approval before we can move forward. So phase 1, scope and feasibility, we allocate as a baseline roughly 10 weeks for that activity. And then the project delivery service partner, PDS, will present a report for defence approval to move into detailed design. For a $1 to $2 million project, we will allocate 6 months for a detailed design. And again, Defence needs to approve that design to move forward. That NMPB acronym I had there before, that happens in between phase 2 and 3. And the vast majority of our projects will go to AusTender. So they'll be open tendered and the PDS partners manage that process. Thanks. Some interesting information, perhaps. Defence is not necessarily the easiest client to work for, but the next couple of slides show some of the constraints and opportunities, I suppose, for contractors and things that you probably need to know before you step into the world of defence. Defence is a fairly unique client. I would say very unique. I was a public servant in Defence for 14 years before I started here, so I kind of have a bit of background with them. And yes, Defence is special. But nowhere else would you have to factor in Abrams tanks movements if you're doing a civil works project and you have to do a traffic management plan. Defence is the only mob that has Abrams tanks, and they're big and they're dangerous. But they're at Laverack Barracks, and they're at Shoalwater Bay, and they're at TFTA, all the places that we work. Some of our projects will involve multiple stakeholders and span multiple facilities. Now, PDS project managers will lead most of the consultation, but as a builder or a worker on site, contractor on site, you will possibly experience many engagements with stakeholders and occupants with different priorities, perhaps different requirements. In some cases, there are hazards that cannot be quantified until we get right into the delivery phase. We won't do destructive testing for asbestos until we have shut the building and entered into contract. So we find it all the time. Defence has a serious asbestos legacy problem. Unexploded ordnance. If you're doing a civil job on a training area, there are things that you will need, the contractor will need to actively go and look for before you send a piece of plant onto a road. And of course, in the news a lot lately is PFAS. Don't ask me what that acronym stands. I know the P is per. We find that everywhere, not just RAF bases. not just aviation-focused bases. Places we can't really explain. And then to top it all off, it's quite hard to get onto base. So if you're there to do a 6-week job, it might not be worth going through a 6-week security clearance process just to get a pass. So there are ways to get around that, and I'm sure the defence guys could explain that a bit better. But if you're there for a big job, it might be worth getting a baseline clearance and getting an access pass so that you can come and go freely to do your jobs, and also escorting subbies. So if you're a bigger contractor that's going to engage a series of subbies and they need to be escorted, that's on the contractor. Baseline clearances come at a cost, which is borne by the contractor and can take several weeks to be processed. Thanks. The next one, again, another busy slide, but 3 key things here. If you're a relatively small business, the ones down the bottom there, Office of Federal Safety Commissioner. For a project with a contract value in excess of $4 million, you will need to be accredited by that office before you can sign a contract. So if you've never done a $4 million plus job for government, that's something you probably need to get squared away before you start. And certainly Defence will not enter into a contract without that. For the projects over $5 million, you'll need that workplace relationship management plan. And again, before contract, that will need to be approved, and they are approved by external to Defence federal government agencies. The last one, the Indigenous procurement policy, it was mentioned in the FKG presentation. Huge opportunity there for Indigenous businesses, especially in the north of Queensland. There's opportunities there, there's benefits there, there's applicability to subcontracts there, and Defence Estate Works leads the way at a whole of government level in regards to the number of contracts and the value of contracts engaged with Indigenous businesses. Thank you. The site for further information and most of the things that you've seen on those previous slides will be held on this site. Another acronym, DECMS. You'll hear it all the time. Defence Estate Quality Management System shows you the information about the tendering. It shows you the contracts, and if we can go to the next one quickly. This is just the slide in relation to the contracts. So the Medium Estate Works contract is the primary contract that Defence enters into. Information there, I mentioned CHOTO at the bottom of that funnel earlier, handover takeover, that's all up there. GEMS data load, so GEMS being the corporate system, all the fixed plant and equipment that you install all needs to be recorded in that system, and it's a bit complicated. Thanks. Also on DECMS, we have a forecast for procurement activities. You might have seen this before. It was updated last month, so it might be worth refreshing your view of this information. Okay, some facts and figures. I split my business between Townsville, primarily Laverack and RAF base, and Cairns, just for a bit of clarity. But since 2015, when our model was introduced and Cushman and Wakefield and the PDS guys came on board, we started 290 projects in Townsville and a further 66 in Cairns. And some decent money there, 250 million plus 26 for Cairns. And we're working through that. We've completed quite a few, but there's still a lot to be done. I believe the bulk of EWP for the whole of North Queensland is Laverack. But we also do quite a bit of work at RAF base and at the training areas. And I think this is my last slide. So I guess now and moving forward, we started another 30 projects in this calendar year in Townsville and 5 in Cairns. Now, that might look a little less than we've traditionally seen up here, but there's a lot of good reasons for that. Midterm refresh for a start, Shoulder Bay redevelopment, which Townsville defence guys look after Shoalwater Bay, OPVs or whatever the acronym is these days for the redevelopment of Cairns. So we're not spending money in Cairns because other people are spending money in Cairns. But those projects will complete over the next few years, and estate works will ramp back up again. So I guess the nice number there from 2022, 2023, I have vagued these up because we do need these figures to be endorsed, and things change all the time in defence. These numbers are only a proportion of what defence allocates to estate works, which is a variable number. But we will look to release $100 million worth of work in the next couple of years. Not included in these figures are a separate allocation provided as in response to COVID-19. We have an acronym for it, of course. It's called DCAT, the Defence COVID Action Team, which is essentially a stimulus package, which I think was worth over $300 million. So none of my figures include that, but that work is coming through both the project delivery service guys and also the spotless guys. I hope that's been useful, and thank you for your time. I'll be hanging around.
Thank you very much, Justin. Some really important information there and points on the preparation work that businesses need to do if you're interested in working on a defence contract. So thank you for that information. Last but not least, I would like to introduce our last Zoom presenter. We have Helen O'Neill and Kim Stevenson from Defence Capital Facilities and Infrastructure Branch to talk to you about the NCIS 8A Building and Maritime Works at HMAS Cairns and adjacent sites. Fingers crossed this one works.
Okay, yeah, thanks Amy, thanks for that. And it's great to be coming to you all the way from Canberra to give you a bit of a background to some major work that's coming up at HMAS Cairns. So we call it the NCIS 8 Alpha Building and Maritime Works. It's probably over $100 million worth of work that'll be done at that base in the next few years. My name's Kim Stevenson. I'm with my colleague Helena Neal. We're both senior project officers from Capital Facilities and Infrastructure Branch. Capital Facilities and Infrastructure, we do the major construction works around Australia at all the defence bases. The branch budget is probably nearly $2 billion a year. So bringing work to different areas of Australia. So as the excellent presentation from Justin said, yeah, they do the sustainment type of work, the ongoing maintenance, and we come through and build organise the planning and the building of the larger type works. There's a bit of an agenda on that we'll run through those sort of things. And I just reinforce a lot of the stuff that Justin said. To work with defence, you've got to know a lot of acronyms, and the processes that Justin talked about are very relevant to our work as well. So yeah, become very familiar with those things. Yeah, so generally the NCIS 8 Alpha work is it's coming along to, there's new platforms of ship being built. You probably hear a lot about it from we're building ships in Adelaide and over at Henderson in Western Australia. And every time there's a new platform comes along, a ship or whatever, there's a need to build some new facilities to cater for those capabilities. So particularly for Cairns, HMAS Cairns, we'll have to, because the Arafura class offshore patrol vessels will be berthed. There'll be some of those vessels will be berthed at Cairns, and they're a lot larger than, about 50% larger than the Armidale class patrol boat. So we need to rearrange things at the base to cater for their mooring, and then some buildings also to support the vessels as well. Because all the new vessels come with a lot more upgraded technology, so they take a little bit more love and care to keep them operational. I'm sure you all know where Cairns is. It's about 3 kilometres out of Cairns, and yeah, so it will be one of the home ports. On the screen, the NCIS, it stands for the Navy Capability Infrastructure Sub-Program. That's why we've shortened it to an acronym. And yeah, so that gives a bit of an overview of where we're doing works under the program, the sub-program, right around Australia at most of the major naval bases to cater for the new Hunter class frigates that are being built, the new offshore support vessel that's currently on its way to Australia, and also the new Arafura class offshore patrol vessel. So Cairns will be upgraded for the offshore patrol vessels as well as work up in Darwin. So it is so it's a major thing, and I'll hand over to Helena now to give you a bit more detail on. I'd just like to say that this is currently out for tender for a managing contractor, so there's not a lot we can really detail that we can go into for probity reasons, but for the future, a lot of your the attendees and people in Cairns and the region will probably be interested and hear a lot more about it in the coming months. Okay, I'll hand over to Alina now. Thanks.
Thanks, Kim. Okay, so we've just got a picture here of HMAS Cairns as it is at the moment, moving through the project overview. So this project is delivering maritime structures as well as building works as well. So just a brief overview on the planned maritime structures. It includes the demolition of the existing Navy wharf, the construction of a new wharf that will be connected to and extended from the existing Wharf 12, also known as the Sugar Wharf. There'll be a level of dredging alongside the new wharf and an upgrade to the existing explosive ordnance buoy at Shallows Land. As you can see on the map on the slide now, this just shows you where HMAS Cairns is and where the EO buoy is currently located. We've just got some drawings here of the architect's impression of the new wharf. And I'll just hand back over to Kim Stevenson to talk you through the support facilities. Kim, you may still be on mute.
Technology, eh? Yeah, I'd just like to say too that the work that we're doing now is separate to the midterm refresh. So it's we're doing this for the new capability. As well as the maritime works, there'll also be some land-based facilities to to support those vessels. And one of those is a 2-story building there that's shown in the slide of the screen with outer suppression. It'll be on the basically on the shore front, and it'll provide the technical support to those vessels. So, and also on the land, there's an existing Navy Cadets unit. We'll need to move that away from the shoreline to allow better operation of the base. And we'll be doing bits and pieces on the engineering services, including the electrical supply, the distribution, the roads, car parking, some civil type of works as well. And also on land, there'll also be a little bit of changing around of some of the buildings to repurpose them or to improve their functionality too. So the current slide on the screen pretty much gives you an overview of where the works are proposed to occur. These have already been through the parliamentary approval process that was approved by Parliament last December. So there'll be the large building there will also come down that was built a long time ago for the Fremantle class patrol boats that used to be at Cairns. So, okay, no, thanks for that. I'll hand over to Alina again. Thanks.
Okay, so this slide just talks about the delivery method. So as Ben from FKG also spoke about, our preferred delivery method on this project is the managing contractor contract, which will be managed closely by our project manager, contract administrator, which is RPS Consulting. This slide just briefly shows you the connection between the MC, the PMCA and Defence, which is CFI, our branch, and then the involvement between the MC and the design team and their subconsultants. So the expected contractor award for this package is in Q1 21, so next year. As Kim mentioned, we're currently out to tender at the moment, so there's little that we can share with you guys, but come next year, once we have an MC on board, I'm sure you'll start to hear a little bit more about this project. And we expect that managing contractors like FKG did speak about will reach out to industry to provide you with relevant briefings on the works and how they plan to package up it. So just a few next steps for the industry. It's recommended that you guys prepare for this work now and reaching out for procurement and supply opportunities. So just like the State Development Group, and as Amy's spoken about, please feel free to reach out to them and also to the Industry Capability Network to assist in preparation of your tenders. Although the MC won't be awarded until next year, you know, think about these opportunities that will come up through this package later next year now. There will be quite a bit of work that's happening around the Cairns area. So it's good to forward plan. So once we have an MC on board, I'm sure they'll reach out and talk to industry a little bit in more detail about this project. And that's all we have to present on NCIS 8A today. Thank you for your time, and thanks, Amy, for allowing us to present.
Thank you very much, Helena and Kim, for that presentation. I think I'm the happiest woman in Australia at the moment because all of the IT went well today. So yay, thank you to Rowan from Wild Gravity for making that run very smoothly. As you can see, a lot of information in that project. Helena mentioned they weren't able to share some of the information, but with the Defence Industry Hub, Mick and I will be very closely connected to the winning managing contractor of that project, and we'll be looking to run a similar type event to this or some smaller specific industry engagement events around that project once we have more information. So that leads me to mention, if you are not on our Defence Industry database and you would like to know all about those upcoming opportunities and events that we do run, please come and see Mick or myself, give us your business card and we'll add you to the list. We do have a couple of Defence 101 workshops coming up next week via webinar. And these are workshops for businesses who may not have worked with Defence before, but would be very eager to try and link into some of these opportunities that you've heard about today. It's a 2.5, 3-hour webinar, so come and have a chat with us and we can give you the information about the registrations for those workshops. That brings us to the end of the formalities this morning. I'd like to thank each and every one of you for setting your alarms very early and making it today. I'm sure you will all agree that it's been so great to have all this energy back in the room and everybody networking and catching up in a socially distanced manner, of course. Hopefully we can bring a lot more of these events to you from this point forward. I hope that the rest of 2020 is a positive and great one for everybody. Come and see us if you have any questions. Thank you to our presenters and attendees via webinar also. We appreciate your time this morning and our presenters who have attended in person. Take care and have a great day. Thank you for coming.